Welcome, everyone, to Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. My name is David Reed. I appreciate you being with me for this episode. Season 6 is underway a little bit now. This is actually pre-recorded the week before we released, so a couple of details behind me may be out of sync, including this dying Naquita reactor here. That's what happens when you don't plug in the batteries. Kevin Coll of, is it Fused Film? Did I get it right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Phew. It's like, I need to update the marquee real quick. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, my friend. How are you? Are you stuck in snow and all that stuff as we're recording this?
Dude, it was snow, ice, snow.
Yeah,
and
same here.
It was ridiculous. You? Yeah, same with you?
Yeah, the same. And the thing is, like, as it starts to melt, it refreezes overnight.
Yeah.
So like the streets are just bonded ice concrete blocks. So
yeah.
and where I live, we don't have plows or anything like that. So it's like a mini COVID isolation reboot again, with me and my kids and my wife. So
it's like there are certain folks out there. It's like, yay, we get to shelter in place again. It's like, yay, no yay. Why are you yay?
There's no yay. My kids need to go back to school immediately.
Have they been off all week?
No, they have. They have not gone outside or done anything since Saturday. 2 Saturdays ago, I think. Whatever. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
So I'm trying to find this article that you sent. Could you do me a favor and send me the CBR article to my email address?
Yeah, to your email?
To
absolutely.
Email. Yeah, because I have a hard time copying and pasting things from my phone.
No worries.
Because I don't have a Mac, so I can't just copy it over.
It's going to come from my Fused Film Gmail address, just so you know.
Awesome. So. You reached out to me, I guess this morning. It wasn't that long. And you sent me this article, and I was like, you know what? This would make a really good clip. And then I was like, you know what? I think this would make a really good, like, whole episode to have a conversation, because there's a lot at play here. And I'll get into it in a moment as soon as we get this this link over.
Email sent.
Email sent. Do you have anything to ask about me?
Yeah. First off, I want to know what's going on with the ensemble that you're wearing there. So please, I want to know where I can get one. Number one, but tell me about it.
I don't think they're available anymore. That's the thing. This is the these are the genuine article, the ripstop fabric.
That's cool.
This comes off? I think it comes off. No, maybe not.
Yeah. Be careful, because I don't know how to sew.
Oh, they're strong. They're really strong. Yeah. This is the ripstop fabric BDU, not the vests, but the jackets that they went on missions with, obviously. And so I've got a genuine earth patch over here, and then SGC never gets love, so I was like, I'm Team Hammond and Landry. So, and then the Air Force patch over here. This was a gift from Dean Newberry 15, 16 years ago now. So, and it's 9 degrees Fahrenheit outside this morning.
Is it warm? I mean, is it like?
It feels great. Yeah, and then it has this liner on the inside of it.
So, David, you're good to go off-world anytime, anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
no matter
I don't know if this is still a thing, but this was in the back of it there. If that's gonna, of course not. God forbid it focuses. Sci-Fi Hero by Men-at-Arms Company. So yeah, jacket cloth WEPG8 SGC 2001 2006. That's what that says. So I'm assuming that someone will be able to tell you what that means. But anyway. You sent me this article. You want to tee it up for us?
Yeah, I'll tee you the article. So I was somewhat surprised that CBR number one, and I don't mean this like offensively, was doing an SG1 article, because it's normally not something that I've seen them write about.
What does CBR even stand for?
Comic book, I think it's comicbookresources.com. And so they primarily are mostly comic book related properties, Marvel, DC, all those other things. And, they do the big blockbuster type coverage of the entertainment
Right.
world.
Well, what it
But
is they're getting on the SG4 bandwagon is what's
they
what's
are,
happening.
and they're likely trying to build up that search engine optimization GEO stuff for the new series coming out. So let's not let them take that over. We need to keep Dial the Gate and our friends over at Gate World in
That's
the
it,
lead
man.
there. So
That's
yeah,
it. So,
but
in
what
this
caught my
this article though, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, what caught my attention was the headline. They did a very good job catching my eyes with it, and it was 26 years later, Stargate SG-1's greatest Richard Dean Anderson episode remains a 10 out of 10 sci-fi gem.
Yeah.
And they reference the SG-1 season 4 episode Window of Opportunity.
So you went straight to it there. That's what they say is the finest hour for Jack O'Neill, and I vehemently disagree. I think that that's low-hanging fruit. And how do you feel about that?
I kind of felt the same way. I mean, when I think of, a lot of the really great Jack O'Neill episodes, the first one that always comes to my mind is The Fifth Race. And that's the one where, we, for a lot of reasons, I think it expanded the mythos of wait, there's more races out there that could help Earth, and it really like brought a lot of the mythology into play. And the how his body was responding to the ancient gene, which we didn't know what that was at the time, but just all of that and how well he portrayed that, I thought was really fantastic.
Couldn't stop typing. He couldn't stop inputting coordinates.
Yeah. And so early on in the series too, it was like, okay, this is really, really great. But he's had so many great episodes. I mean, I think later on in the series, when he took kind of over that General Hammond type role, there was probably less opportunities for him to do a lot more of like what he did off world. But man, some of the I'm trying to think of, because it's been a long time since I've watched a lot of the series, but
he has to be more responsible once he's, flying a desk.
He's more of a diplomat. He's a politician. He's
try to be,
he tries to be. When he's breaking rules and breaking rank, and it's all to do the right thing, no matter the risk, I think that's when he's at his best. So I get the whole time loop thing. Like, it was really well written, and that is a episode of television that we've seen reused in tons of different properties. They reference Supernatural in the article, but there's other shows that have done this. It's a
cause and effect.
Well used sci-fi writing trope. Yeah,
in TNG, because they use the commercials as the switch.
Mm-hmm.
The ships gets destroyed at the end of every act, then it resets, and there were actually people calling the stations when it aired saying something's wrong with this copy, and they weren't noticing the subtle changes. So it's like, guys, just pay a little bit more attention to your show.
Yeah. What about you though? Like, when you think of like the penultimate Jack O'Neill episode, like what comes to your mind?
I will share that after I share words from our sponsor. No, I'm kidding. I've got before we got together, I put out a request about an hour ago on the Dial the Gate feed on YouTube. And I got together with a few of my closest friends here, and I wanted to check in with them. So that's what we're going to have a look here. Killer Jockle 95. No, that's the wrong one. I'm sorry, Killer Jockle. You're talking in some other thread. Don Bolano, his funny interaction with Herak, the first prime of Anubis. So that's the, I guess that would, it depends on which one he's talking about. So I suspect he's talking full circle.
Yeah.
Failing upwards, I see. Yeah. There's some, is it nearly necessary to further antagonism? Yes.
No. That's right. Hey, real quick, not to get off on this tangent,
but all right.
I don't think this gets enough discussion around Stargate conversations that I get in with friends and family and stuff like that. That I've always thought about this. With Star Trek, you had the Prime Directive. And with Stargate, there isn't a Prime Directive. It's like, go in and get whatever we need to help protect us against the Goa'uld. Right. I think that starts to kind of creep in more later on in the series when you have like the Air
Force
iOS
regulations apply.
Yeah, there's a lot more civilian oversight and things like that, governmental oversight.
No war
things
crimes, things like that don't happen generally in the.
But very early on, I mean, it was kind of like that was the deal was, and I mean, certainly that was what the what was the non-SGC group, the secret group that was kind
The
of
NID?
the NID. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of more how they wanted to
Exactly.
operate. You
Yeah,
know,
that's what you do. That's what happens when there were no obstacles and the gloves came
yeah.
off.
But
Yeah.
I find that area of Stargate very compelling from a storytelling standpoint. The ethics piece, we've talked about disclosure in the past being a really huge, interesting trope. And what's funny is there's a new movie coming out soon, with, I think it comes out in theaters this summer, about the idea of like disclosure and aliens and stuff like that with
Yes, Spielberg.
Emily Blunt. Yeah, Spielberg's doing it, and
Yeah.
so
Is it
really
this summer?
really
Good.
yeah, I think it's coming out this summer, this fall, sometime this year in
I
2026.
may have to
So
go to the
yeah,
theater for that. I can't remember the last time I went to the
yeah,
theater, man.
yeah.
I may have
But
to go out and see it with you.
we will do
Take
it.
the
Well,
boys.
I'm
if they
trying
can
to
sit
think the
through it.
last time I went to a theater.
I know.
I took the boys to go see Lilo and Stitch, I think.
Oh,
So yeah,
okay.
which would have been last summer at one point. So.
Yeah, disclosure. We had some conversation when the announcement came out about Stargate going to London. Darren and I had a live stream like an hour after we found out about that, and disclosure was brought up by one of the folks in the chat, and it's like that's not something that we're going. The comment was like, could we have skipped over it? And this is post disclosure for SG4. It's like that is at least a movie or a season to tell that story. Like you really got to milk that because, like Brad Wright said, you only get to tell it once.
That's right.
That's right. Let me see here. Kari QV1WN. I'm sure that sounds really cool when you say it really fast. I've always liked his performance in Brief Candle. Question mark after that on the screen here. The one where the nanites age him rapidly. Others that come to mind are Window of Opportunity and Solitudes. Solitudes is also that's a great just Jack and like, I would say that that's a better Carter episode than it is an O'Neill. That's more of, if you had to pick one of them, I'd say that's a Carter episode than over an O'Neill episode because you're following her perspective, especially as she leaves the cave.
It's true. That is very true.
Yeah. Let's see here. Charlotte Hardy 822, Window of Opportunity. So many lines, including I wasn't listening the first time. Yeah. The ones others have mentioned and the crazy ketchup mustard face with all the different ways of saying crazy. Yeah.
I think it depends on, I think the way to answer the question here, and all this is subjective, right? Is which version of O'Neill that you like the best, right?
What era of RDA in the role?
Not just that, but like there's the sassy, sarcastic, humorous version. There is the tortured, dying, hallucinating versions that we've seen in certain episodes. There's everything kind of in between.
Tormented over Death of Charlie.
Yeah. There's various different like that's again what's so great about the season and these types of characters is that the writers get to do so much with them over a long period of time. There's obviously the Kurt Russell version, which we don't talk a lot about, but like, you know, he was certainly more of a
hour.
Yeah, it was the dark night of the soul, suicidal. You know, I'm not coming back from this. That's my goal. You know, tore up with the death of his son, you know, all those kind of things. So very different types of styles of Jack O'Neill. I think what made him so great though was that balance of humor and seriousness, that it made every episode like you knew you were going to laugh at some point, but you also knew that there was stakes that mattered. And it's like, how are they going to get out of this? You knew they were going to, but how were they? And it was always like, what's the angle here?
What's the angle that's going to pull it off?
Yeah,
that's going to get him out of there. Pokey God 99, Balls Torture with Daniel. It's Abyss.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Fry Jemmy, when he has the ancient archive in his head and he dials Pegasus to save himself. So that's the fifth race, and the galaxy is Ida.
Okay.
And so the fifth race is certainly out there. Yeah. I sent out a poll a couple of months ago, maybe a month and a half ago, saying like, what is the defining moment in the franchise? And overwhelmingly, like 45% of people said O'Neill meeting the Asgard, and the Asgard telling us you've already taken the first steps towards becoming the fifth race. Your species has great potential. That's good.
Yeah, it's very good.
I think that would be a huge one right there. If it was like a Jack specific though, I personally think that it would be something else. Super Ka too. Says season 4 is Prodigy. The gifted Air Force Academy student visits the alien moon with Carter. It highlights the everyday competent responsibility and commitment to his friends and coworkers. That's good. It's also the part 2 with that, which is Proving Ground. I think is really good too. That's one of my favorite Carter O'Neill scenes is them in the commissary. Say, fine, they're the future of the program, the Air Force. God help us. And it's like, that is so true. It's like this, our future is in the hands of Grogan, who can't get out of getting himself shot every mission.
Remind me again, and I feel terrible for not knowing the answers to these because my old age. Who are the race that they encountered very early on? And that main actor that kind of led the people was the guy that was in Saw.
The Tollan.
The Tollan. I thought those were really great episodes with Jack and how he interacted with them and just the dynamics, the politics.
We appreciate everything you've done for us.
Those types of, especially when he had with, kills me, I can't remember the name of that actor, but those exchanges I thought were really good.
With Tobin Bell, Omak.
Tobin Bell, yeah, just really, really good acting all around between both of them in good situations. I found one in a list that I found There But for the Grace of God. Jack,
the alternate Jack.
Yeah, confronting that doomed version of himself, which, again, classic sci-fi trope.
You killed every one of my family. Eat the end of my staff cannon. That was intense, because once that came out, the audience knew it, and he knew that it was all said and done, and that was his fault. That was one of the great things about that episode was it switched positions with Hammond and O'Neill, because why the hell not? Has
Cold Lazarus been mentioned?
It has not been mentioned. That's a strong episode.
Yeah, very different, right? Flipping the humor side to the grief guilt.
Absolutely. Side. That's a very strong one for sure. Joseph Fovic, favorite episode with O'Neill is just Jack being in charge of SGC 804. So that's, I think, 0 Hour. It was so special and such a natural character growth for him that I love Jack being humbled. It was so nice to have RDA in almost every scene in an episode, if not actually the case. It had been so long since that had happened, if it ever had happened. Excuse me. Eric McCarter, 1763. It's O'Neill with 2 L's. Seriously, I think the episode where he takes the young girl to school and helps her to learn to play was some of my favorites. That is Learning Curve. And it is one of my favorites. And like that episode and the end of Bane are really like my Stargate chicken soup episodes, where it's like, this hits me right in the warm fuzzies. Like, I'm really hoping that a piece of Stargate continues to do this with the 4th series, that they're willing to be a little bit lighter in certain areas and not like popcorny fake Marvel light, but meaningful light. Like, we're going to see Marin again, and her brain is toast, but we're going to take care of her now, and we're going to teach them the old-fashioned way if we can. Interesting story about that. The original note for that, the original author, Heather, was it Heather Ash? I think Heather Ash wrote Learning Curve. Hang on. Yeah. Just want to double check for the proper attribution. Heather E. Ash. The original script for that was they couldn't learn the old-fashioned way. Their brains were destroyed. Yeah. And I thought that would have been a hell of it. Like later SG1, they would have done that. That's the version that they would have gone with. But early SG1, I like this ending. It's strong stuff. Spider Mag Gaming. Wow. In the middle of my backswing. Yep. So window of opportunity. They're really hitting it up there. So a lot of folks really do agree with this article.
What about 1969? I haven't heard that one mentioned. That's a great one.
Captain James T. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise. Which they would have known. The Air Force guys would have known what that was. I mean, come on. Yeah. The Luke Skywalker reference would have worked because that wasn't out yet. But yeah, for sure. Which one did you say was yours? Which you think
Mine was
yours
the
would be?
fifth race.
The fifth race.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah. And I think that's kind of a twofer, right? Because I think it's well regarded as one of the top just overall SG1 episodes, but I think it's a great Jack O'Neill episode too.
It's a great hour of science fiction.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like I said, it gives it's a step in the ground to say this is where Stargate is going. This is what it wants to be, and buckle up, and we'll see how we get there.
That's right.
And multi seasons and spinoffs later, and now we get a fourth series, which is
I know, man.
And to me, what's so great about it is the fourth series still has an opportunity to hone in on episodes like that, the fifth race. Because there's so much there that could tie into whatever we get with this new series. So
I really hope that whatever idea Martin Garrow has, because he says it's an original idea. I know that, because this is going to be a totally new chapter that fits inside the universe. But I'm really hoping on the back end there's going to be this thread that gets tugged on, that they start pulling and pulling and pulling, and as we're watching, like the underneath this whole substrata of the show that they're building, there is a broader connection. So we do get both for the price of one.
It has to be
that
that
doesn't
way.
happen.
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen, I'm okay with that, because if this is successful, if whatever this is successful, then they'll have the opportunity to tell more of those stories, because Amazon will be like, that made money. Let's do another one. And that's why we have to be there for it. That's why we have to give this a shot. So,
and it's advantageous for Amazon too, right? Because then people who gravitate to the new series that have never been part of the original series will go back and rewatch those things. And so it's retention on their platform, which drives even more ROI for their business. And that's
return on investment, all you marketing major folks.
I sometimes forget that I do this for a living, and then it's like people are like, what language is he speaking?
Yes, he's speaking in high-rise terminology.
I'm speaking suit. That's what I'm speaking.
Suit. That's it. Yeah. Logan, the one where Ball is torturing him. Yeah. So this, as sub response, Panax 07, that's where you're wrong. That line had me shook. Yes. I think that's the most raw that Jack gets, is when he's with Daniel. Yeah. It's close with Teal'c, but Teal'c is kind of like a brother / like kid for him, like when he gives him quarters for the vibrating bed, there's like, run along, go play now. Like he's almost Teal'c's caretaker in that regard. It's one of the things that I wish that in Affinity in season 8, I really wish that Jack had more involvement with him, like been calling him at least or something to check in on him constantly. Are you okay? Are you okay? He would have been, even after 8 years. It's like, okay, this is a big step. You're no longer staying at the base anymore. And then someone else underneath him said, as in Bocce. The Stanley S 3657. I lost my son. I know. So window of opportunity. They're really at the time. Again, Mr. Rick Kramer, the time loop episode comes to mind, and the episode where they clone him, but the clone is a kid. So Michael Welsh, the success of that episode or the failure of that episode completely hinged on Michael. Like he really had to pull that one off. What's your regard for Fragile Balance?
It's one I haven't thought about in a long time. I need to process that one.
Okay,
David.
It's all good. J. Russum Jr. learning that humanity is the fifth race. I know there's many fine points throughout the series, but that early on one was the best. It sets up the rest of the series. That's a very fair point, particularly because it's in the end. It's in Unending. It's Thor's line to us before we depart, and you see like Carter taking it in. That was one of the great things about Amanda in that episode, particularly with that scene. She recognized how big a deal that would be for her to be receiving that information, and for Thor to even consider imparting it. as
Yep.
some of his last words. I think that's I'm getting tingles just thinking about that, because we know that we're not going to be seeing them anymore. We know that this is it for them. And this is the chance for him to say something profound to us, because they're handing us, rather than blowing up with it, they're handing us a copy of everything that they are, everything that this civilization is, and it fits in a desk in a room. It's mind-boggling.
Let me ask you this question, because we talked a little bit about it as this ties into the new series. Do you hope that there is, I mean, you mentioned the lightheartedness that we'd like to see, the balance of how Garrow decides to go with the show. Do you want something? I don't want to use I hate using the word campy, but I'm going to just use it to say it. Do you want some campiness like with O'Neill and how Richard Dean Anderson portrayed him, where there is a strong balance between breaking fourth wall, lines like in the middle of my backswing, to Simpsons references? Do you want there to be a character who embodies that? Because I think when I think of SGU, there really wasn't a lot of that. There may have been a few with David Blue every now and then, but just really not a lot. Atlantis had, I think Shepard was very good at kind of doing his best impersonation of O'Neill, but being also very different. I don't know if I'm asking the question back to myself. I'm not sure I know the answer to that either. I do think you're right, though. I think there needs to be some level of levity in the right way, right?
Brad Wright is in that room. Joseph Malazzi is in that room. Martin Garrow is in that room. They all write humor very well.
Yeah.
That's going to be a central ingredient. When Brad says this thing feels like Stargate, when he's talking about having read the pilot for this new idea, that's at least part of what he has to mean by that, because 100 and 200, they full on embraced the comedy angle of the show. In my opinion, it has to be earned. It can't just happen swinging straight out of the gate that way, pardon the pun, because we have to get to know the characters a little bit for that to mean something to us. Because Rick wasn't that way from the very beginning. He recognized that Kurt Russell is the starting point. He was very dour in the pilot, with some glimpses of where he was going to go. Well, they could be blowing their noses right now. For this, you could stay at my place. Let's go. And he was feathering in the O'Neill that he wanted to portray. Yeah. And it worked. So yes, but it has to be earned through story. You can't just switch it on.
I agree.
Because then it's going to be like, now that's campy. But he is Jaffa. Nobody plays one on TV. Like at season 7 at that point, I remember watching, I'm like, did I just hear that right? I have to unpack that for a second here. It's like, no, that was as if Rick said that.
Who's a great example of this, and you talking about earning this level of humor within a drama, is Sawyer in Lost. Oh, yeah. Because when we first meet him, right, he's very unlikable. Like, you don't want to like the guy. Yeah. And then, but those type of moments where there's humor that comes out in his character, he becomes likable, even when he's doing unlikable things. I think that could be really compelling, right?
That's right.
You want to have more, not cookie cutter characters, but where everybody's in this kind of moral gray, like you have with SGU, but there is a lot more ways you can embed those type of things. It makes things interesting. I actually think, not to get on again, I keep going on tangents, and I'm sorry.
You're okay. We haven't caught up in a while ago.
The SGU, that was one of my biggest things about SGU that bothered me, was I think they tried so hard to go the opposite direction of Atlantis and SG-1 due to the popularity of Lost and Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, that was a big influence from the network, but yeah.
Yeah. That I think those two things really, I think they box themselves in a lot into just everybody's got to be kind of dark and miserable. And I mean, to an extent, being lost on a ship in a galaxy you've never been to, hopping from planet to planet, I'd be pretty miserable too. And you're
No
only,
caffeine.
yeah, no caffeine, no
No
hamburgers,
cigarettes.
yeah,
Yeah.
nothing. So
No
I guess it
hamburgers.
works when you really like look at it from that perspective. I
That's
think though, from a audience expectation, there would have been some nice, again, levity to some things.
That's perfectly fair.
Yeah. But
I'm not going to belabor the point anymore. My
Yeah.
favorite when I read this article, the first one that came into my mind was Abyss.
I thought I kind of was thinking you were leaning that way.
Really? You did?
Yeah. Well, because when I brought it up earlier, I was waiting for you to say something about it. So yeah, it's a good one. It's a great one.
Jack,
So.
you don't go to any deeper place than being destroyed again and again and coming back and again and again. And Daniel says, you're going to cease to be the Jack O'Neill we know long before this is over.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just become just a fish out of water, just trying to breathe. And we see that with him with Ball. We see it taking hold because Jack he's just not there anymore. He's just quietly whispering Daniel's name. Just get me out of here, man. I'm done. I've tapped out. And it's the same type of feeling that I get when I watch a lot of Chain of Command Part 2 in TNG, where Picard was with the Gull somebody, one of the Cardassians, David Warner. Brilliant episode. There are 4 lights. And before he only admits this to Troy later on at the end of the episode. He was getting ready to say exactly what his Cardassian guard / torturer wanted him to say, just to have a little bit more of a luxurious experience in that horrible situation. And Jack goes there, and that's what that episode does. So in my opinion, Abyss is it. Window of Opportunity is up there. You have a wider play, I'll grant you, of highs and lows in that in terms of like the amplitude of Jack O'Neill, if that's the right term. I think it is. That's definitely Window of Opportunity. I'll give you that.
Sure.
Much more so than Fifth Race or Abyss. But in terms of a performance, I would invite someone to tell me what episode after Abyss was that Rick gave as good a performance. Because I don't think you can name one. I think that was the last real good one.
I think what ties that into a really nice bow too is the person he's having the conversations with being
Correct.
Daniel Jackson and Michael Shanks, the two best characters in the show, in the series, having these compelling conversations at a very, and remind me, he's ascended at this point, right? Daniel Jackson's character.
Yeah, he shows he throws his shoe through him.
Yeah. So that just makes it even better because it's like, as the audience, and I remember again watching this in real time, like it's like, okay, where are they going to go with Daniel's character now after this? And so it invites so much. Man, you may have just sold me on Abyss being the best.
I think the is it profundity? Is that the word that I want? Little grammar cat wordsmith here checking.
I'm usually the guy that brings out big words.
The great depth or intensity of a state, quality, or emotion. The profundity of
it's a good word. All right. Profundity
of Abyss is really epic for Stargate. You can't get something like that, as far as I'm concerned, in a Doctor Who or a couple of like a Warehouse 13 or a Eureka to actually go there. Those are campy, in my opinion. Some of them work, some of them don't, in my opinion. It's all there. It all plays. And yeah, it's solid stuff, man, for sure.
Great.
So, yeah, I mean, hit me up in a couple of days and see if that's how you still feel. I'm very, very curious to know.
Well, now I'm going to go back and watch this episode tonight. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to watch them both back to back and
Yeah.
see
Start off with
what we
Abyss.
get.
Then
Yeah.
you'll write it out in window of opportunity.
Flip it back.
You have been working on something
Yeah.
that you didn't tell me about, and I'm honestly a little bit hurt about, but that's okay because we're talking about it now. And because I love you, we're having you on to talk about it an hour after I heard about it. Tell me about Collide. What is this thing?
Yeah. So Collide the series, it's a project I started 10 years ago, right as I was getting married. And it was just an idea I had. And it was an idea of, okay, so before I get into it, there has always been this passion of mine to want to start writing. And I never knew exactly what I wanted to write for, who I wanted to write for, and the medium of which I wanted to write for. Was it TV, novels, whatever? And whatever little clout I had left in the industry from the fusedfilm.com days, I was like, well, if I ever have something, I'll send it to somebody and get some feedback and see where it goes. And was ready to just have all expectations shattered. As competitive as the creative world is, people either have already had the idea and it didn't work, or they just don't like the execution of it, whatever. So, I think I was afraid of where I would end up. And so I just kind of kept working on this idea in the background over the last 10 years. And finally, I just said, to hell with it. I got to do this. And I think the inspiration is my kids. That like when you have something creative you want to do, see it through. Okay. You don't worry about distribution and all of those things. Those things will figure itself out, but just get it out of your head. And so that's what I wanted to do. So what is Collide the series? Collide the series now is a self-published book series that I'm writing. The first book is called No Matter What, and it will release February 16th, 2026 on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. And it revolves around these two characters, Isabella and Weston, who during Christmas time in 2002, and the dates are very important as you watch the series, as you read the series.
You're already thinking ahead.
Yeah. And I know, watch, right? We'll see, maybe one day. But so it's set during Christmas time, and it's this painful breakup, and it's in a train station. So I'm giving everybody a little bit of insight into the first chapter. And they make a decision to set a pact to meet 10 years later.
This and so like Desmond and Penny and Lost.
Yeah, a little bit like that, a little bit before sunset. If anybody's ever seen that movie. Okay. But as the book flash forwards to 2012, the circumstances of an impending reunion get thwarted by all of these external events. There's a bombing at a concert that occurs, and there's a mystery tied behind what Weston's been up to over the last 10 years since that parting of ways in the train station. And we find Isabella as this very self-assured trauma surgeon at Mass General in Boston, where the whole story takes place. And so it's a series of near misses and countdown to the impending reunion. And so the theme of the story really is love is easy to promise, but showing up may cost everything. And that's really what the story I wanted to tell. I didn't set to tell out a medical drama or a spy series, although that has a lot of those things colliding together within the story. But it really is about these two characters, Weston and Isabella, who no matter what have to make a choice.
So is there any sci-fi in this at all?
There is no sci-fi. However,
I did not expect that from you. I'm honestly surprised.
Well, there's a little. So I think I've never shared this with your audience. My favorite author of all time is Michael Crichton. I have every single one of his books, read every single one of his books. So there is a techno thriller vibe to it. I don't want to spoil it. I want people to read the book and find out what that is.
You're not going to pull a dark on us.
Yeah. So there is, I talked about these circumstances that start to kind of like keep them from being together. One of which is a piece of the medical drama that involves some potential technology. I don't want to give anything away. That creates a medical mystery that nobody can explain, and this guy's injuries defy science, logic, and every system meant to protect him. And so it requires everything that Isabella is as a doctor and a person to go against her training and paradigms to figure this out. And so there is a lot of sci-fi in that and what's kind of causing these type of issues. And the whole book itself, the first book really is a prologue to the second book. So like I said, I wrote this as a series. So it is a trilogy. So this really is the first act. It sets up these characters. I think when the reader reads this, there's going to be questions that they have that don't get answered. And that's intentional because those questions will get answered in the next book. I really looked at this kind of almost like episodic television and how I wanted to write this, because I wanted it to be something where it could be, you could come in and out and read them. They're very quick reads. The first book's 190 to 200 pages, depending on which format you get. And it goes by pretty quick.
Formats have different
formats would be
lengths?
Paperback, hardbook, ebook. So like the page numbers vary depending.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, they're format.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the second book, which will come out in the fall, will be, or actually late summer, will be No Matter the Cost. And then the third one planned will be in the winter of this year, and that'll be No Matter the Consequences. So it really builds. And the second book, I think, is going to be a little bit more sci-fi.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil anything, but AI is a very big piece of it. Figured I'd capitalize on that. So
the fear and loathing.
Yeah, absolutely. And but at the end of the day, I mean, these are just fun stories that I wanted to tell and to start maybe going down the path of becoming an author and trying that out. So hopefully people gravitate to the stories and like them. And you can go to collidetheseries.com where you can read more about the books, and there's links to Barnes and Noble and Amazon where you can order. The Amazon link is not, I'll be clear, the Amazon link is not working. I just tried to click on
it. The Barnes and Noble one was really draggy, so check that one out.
The Amazon one, I think, there's an issue with how I set it up with. So I'm learning people how to be a self-publisher. So bear with me.
But it won't be by the time this thing comes out next week. So
yeah. It comes out. There's a countdown clock. So 14 days, 10 hours, 48 minutes, and 44 seconds. Everybody will be able to get it at these places. And I just appreciate the support, number one, from the community. If this is something you kind of stuff you like. So yeah.
December 2012, is there going to be any Mayan calendar connection? No. Really? Okay.
No, just I really just wanted to tell a story during Christmas time, and it kind of just worked out that way. But no, the timing of actually is when I first started writing these, because I think I said 10 years ago, right? So that would have been about, well, it was a little bit more than 10 years ago now. I'm thinking it's 2026 now. So I did start writing these probably in 2000. It would have been about 2012, excuse me, is when I started this. So, but the backstory was, I don't want to spoil it. There is a huge reason why 2002 is a huge number. And even the year before that, 2001, plays into the backstory of one of the characters, which you don't really find out until the second novel. It's in the prologue, actually. I just finished writing that about a week or two ago. So,
is it hard for you to keep your head down, or are these things just coming out of you?
They're coming out, man. The other day I was cooking outside on my grill and I was looking up at the stars, and I don't mean to sound cliche about it, but it was like just a trough of ideas were hitting my head. And
At
it's
9
like,
degrees outside, I suspect they were.
Yeah, a trough of ideas.
Get inside the house.
I came back inside and I just flipped open my laptop at the kitchen table and kids are running around. My wife's over there doing something. And she's like, "Are you working?" I was like, "I have these ideas. I have to just get them out
Here I
or
am.
I don't want to lose them." And so, I'll do dictating on my phone and things like that. So, the other thing I'm doing with this, if the fans gravitate to this and stay tuned to the site, Collide the Series, I will be blogging about my process and just kind of giving people insights into how I'm learning how to be an author, how I'm learning to be a publisher, but also too, there'll be materials in there about why I made certain choices about things and stuff like that. So hopefully, people get to kind of take this ride with me on how I'm learning how to do all this. And I by no means have went into this wanting to do a New York Times bestseller. I'm sure that there'll be a lot more criticism than there will be positive reviews. And I'm okay with that. I mean, again, I'm learning through this, and I have a red file on my computer of so many more ideas of stories I want to tell. So this is, only the beginning. Nothing's going to stop me at this point.
Well, congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Are you thinking about an audiobook at all?
Absolutely. There'll be an audiobook. I have this great mic here, so I think I'm going to record my voice and do all of the audio work myself. And then I got to just figure out distribution wise how to set that up. So yeah, I think there's a way to go direct through Audible.
I think you have to give them exclusivity though, if you want to do that though. And their tiers for reimbursement I'm not thrilled with, but yeah, there are some options there for sure. Well, congratulations to you, man. This is fantastic.
Thank you very much.
So there's 2 timelines, or is there potentially 3?
I'm
detecting a 2022. Is there a possibility of that?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe that's where the 3rd book
maybe let's set another date. I'm just
tell you what,
I'll come suspicious.
Come back after the summer. Hopefully I'll be on before then, but we'll do another discussion around this in the summer after the 2nd book comes out, because I think by that time the 3rd book will already have the manuscript done. So
well, okay. Yeah. Very good. That's awesome, dude. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to hang and talk about Jack a little bit and
absolutely
explore that. I really appreciate you passing along the idea. It's things like this. It's like, oh, we can talk about that. Absolutely.
I think it's a great conversation, right? Like it's a lot of fun to go back and rehash those kind of things. Maybe we need to have what's the best Daniel Jackson episode?
That's not a bad idea. LT530. I'm glad others are also thinking of in the middle of my backswing. And LGD6619. He united people of many worlds and gained Earth allies that would ensure our future. Seems like a pretty big deal to me. Well, of course, over the show, yes, absolutely. Just trying to pin you guys down to a specific episode. Everyone wants to go all of them. But yeah, that's it's awesome to have you back, brother.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this episode here real quick. My name is David Reed. You're watching the Oral History Project. That's Kevin Coll with Fused Film. Tremendous thanks to the folks who make up my production team and my moderators, my video editors, my archivists. Y'all are so important to chugging this thing along. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button. It does make a difference and will help us continue to expand our audience. And if you have some Stargate friends out there, get this over to them, because we're just going to continue to grow and continue to create more Stargate content, not just because we like to, but because we have something really exciting to look forward to later on this year as they go into principal photography, and 2027 as they go into post-production. Hopefully we get to see a look at this thing, Stargate 4. My name is David Reed for Dial the Gate. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you on the other side.